A while ago, I made a video on some wild examples of Pokemon censorship, covering content in Pokemon that is a lot more adult before it gets shipped off to the rest of the world and put in front of Western audiences. That video has done insanely well, so thank you so much for all the support on that, and as such, we're going to be covering some more crazy examples of Pokemon censorship in this video today, so let's go ahead and check it out. So censorship in general is all about limiting what you're able to see compared to the original source. But one thing you shouldn't limit yourself on is proper grooming and hygiene, which is brought to you better than ever before by today's sponsor, Manscaped, and their Performance Package 4.0 product line. You see, it all starts with the Lawnmower 4.0, an electric body trimmer like never before. It's waterproof, has a built-in LED light so you can properly see in all those tight nooks and crannies. It's equipped with advanced skin-safe technology to reduce nicks and cuts on all those sensitive areas, and it even has a wireless charger that can give you up to 90 minutes of shaving action on just a single charge. That's just the beginning of what the Performance Package 4.0 has to offer though, because it also hooks you up with the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer, also with skin-safe technology, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, and the Crop Reviver ball toner spray, to add that finishing touch to that groomed masterpiece of a body you've got, and to keep you feeling as fresh as possible. Plus, for a limited time, when you pick up the Performance Package 4.0, you're also going to get 2 free gifts, the Shed Travel Bag and Manscaped's own anti-chafing boxer briefs. As if it couldn't get any better though, if you head to manscaped.com today with the link in the description, you're also going to get 20% off, plus free international shipping when you use code HoopsVGM at checkout. So elevate your grooming action with Manscaped today, and big thank you to them for supporting the channel. Okay, so starting this off, why don't we begin with some teats, because that's always a good way to go in a situation like this. The Pokemon Milltank, through no fault of its own, has gotten itself into some trouble over the years thanks to its glorious udders. There have been a couple instances in both the anime and the TCG where some interaction with Milltank's udders caused some censorship when these things were brought out west. First off, in the anime episode Got Milltank, there is an infamous scene where both Meowth and Ash's Cyndaquil start sucking on the udders of a Milltank, which isn't technically explicit or anything, but it is really weird and uncomfortable looking, so it's a no-brainer that this scene was entirely removed when the anime was dubbed into English. Similarly, in the TCG, a card named Moo Moo Milk was released in the Neo Genesis expansion, which featured different art in English compared to its Japanese counterpart, which consists of a Centret sucking from what appears to be a cow udder-shaped bottle. Just like the anime scene, this isn't technically bad, it's just kinda weird looking, so it was probably a good move for the TCG to censor this as well. While most of the time, stuff that is censored in Pokemon has to do with bits of dialogue or certain pictures that are a little too risque, there is also one instance where an entire Pokemon was scrapped for the sake of censorship. Well, I guess you couldn't technically call this censorship in the true sense of the word, since it was the creators themselves that removed it from the games, but right around the time of Pokemon Gold and Silver, Ken Sugimori and Junichi Masuda revealed in an interview that there was once a Pokemon based on the first ever cloned mammal, which was a sheep named Dolly. Dolly was cloned shortly after the release of Pokemon Red and Green in 1996, so this Pokemon was likely being made for Pokemon Gold and Silver, but Sugimori and Masuda said that it was scrapped because it was, quote, too controversial. This likely has to do with the debate on whether cloning is ethically okay, and Game Freak were also probably a little skittish at the time as well, given all of the controversies they went through in Generation 1. Some people think that Mareep is ultimately what became of this clone sheep Pokemon, since it is also a sheep and also came out in Gen 2 like this clone Pokemon was probably planned to. But unfortunately, this controversial Pokemon design will probably stay within the depths of Game Freak's vault for years to come. Since we brought up a TCG card in that first point about Milltank, we might as well continue heading in that direction and look at a couple more TCG cards that have been censored over the years, like, for instance, this Magmortar card from the Dragon's Exalted expansion. In Japan, the card's art looks like this, but in English it was changed to this, and the change is thought to have occurred because Magmortar is pointing its flamethrower arm at the viewer in the original art, which, if you really stretch it, and I mean really stretch it, could be viewed as too threatening and graphic, prompting the international release of the card to have some tamer art instead. Honestly though, this has gotta be one of the stupidest examples of censorship in Pokémon history. I could understand if it was an actual gun that was being pointed at the viewer, but it's literally just an arm, which, yeah, can act as a flamethrower, but guess what, guys? Arm flamethrowers don't exist. This is fantasy. Nothing about this art is suggestive or graphic or threatening at all, so in my opinion, this was definitely an overreach in the censorship department. Another questionable act of censorship that occurs in the TCG took place with the Sabrina's Gaze card that debuted in the Gym Heroes expansion. Just like the other aforementioned cards, this card's art was changed for its English release, because if you squint at the original card at just the right angle, it could look like Sabrina is flipping you the bird. Now personally, I can see how it could be construed as such, but to flip someone the bird, the rest of your fingers have got to be folded in, which isn't even close to happening in the original art. So yeah, they're probably just playing it safe given the kid-friendly nature of the series, but it's still a bit of an overreaction in my opinion. Next up, we're gonna take a break from the TCG and highlight the manga, as in the entire manga side of Pokémon as a whole, because as can be expected from Japanese manga, there is a bunch of stuff in the various Pokémon manga that is very much adult and would definitely not fly in the West. The manga is easily the most adult form of Pokémon media, and as such, there is a ton of fan service and sexual type situations that occur all over the place, and that all had to be severely toned down and covered up for the English releases. The worst offender by far as the manga is concerned, however, is the Pokémon Pocket Monsters manga. This was the first Pokémon manga that ever released, and it basically just does whatever it wants. It is extremely wacky and weird, which is probably the reason it never saw a release in the West, especially because there is actual full frontal nudity in this manga. No joke. In Chapter 2, when Red is trying to catch a Pokemon for the first time, there's a joke that's made about Pokeballs. You know, the kind of joke everyone has made at one point or another, and this results in Red literally pulling down his pants and exposing himself to the world. And this isn't even the only time this happens in the manga. It literally happens multiple times. I'm probably not going to show this in the video because I don't want the YouTube bots to attack me, but yeah, it is shocking to say the least, and is probably the reason why this manga in particular never came out west. While the manga and TCG certainly have their own examples of crazy censorship, it doesn't get much more ridiculous than the anime. The original few series of the anime were censored to an absolute absurd extent sometimes, primarily thanks to 4Kids Entertainment being in charge of the English dubbing. For example, there is a scene where Meowth lights the fuse to some dynamite in the episode Attack of the Prehistoric Pokémon, but the actual lighter and lighting of the fuse is cut out in the original English release of the episode. The dynamite was fine, it was allowed to be in the show, but the lighter, no, that's too graphic. A similar situation also occurred in the episode Snow Way Out, where a scene in which Meowth lights a match is completely removed from the Western release, and Meowth's lit match is edited to be a candle instead, because you know, matches are evil and are so much worse than candles. It's especially hilarious because a little bit later in the episode, it shows Team Rocket holding burnt out matches. So basically, the matches are okay to show as long as they're not lit. Yeah, that sounds like it makes sense. I really would like to know who thought that these kinds of changes were a good idea, because they honestly need a good punch in the face. Another really dumb attempt at censorship from the early Pokemon anime has to do with episodes involving bombs. Sometimes, primarily by the way of Team Rocket, bombs make their way into the show. However, these aren't really cut out like you might think they would be, but bafflingly enough, the word bomb sometimes is. It's not 100% consistent, but sometimes Team Rocket will refer to their bombs as blasters or blaster balls instead. So showing Team Rocket literally bombing people is okay, but saying the actual word bomb is too much? These frickin' people over at 4Kids, man. These frickin' people. When talking about all of these anime edits though, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the absolute absurdity that is the attempt to censor out Asian food. Admittedly, censor probably isn't the right word, it's more like change to fit the Western audience, but still, the stuff they tried to pull off in this regard is frickin' ridiculous. We all know about how rice balls were called jelly donuts, but arguably even worse is when, in multiple episodes, they replaced the appearance of giant rice balls in the original version with giant sandwiches in the English version. Because, you know, the amount of effort to edit that out and input a giant sandwich of all things is definitely worth it so that the rest of the world doesn't have to see or hear about what a rice ball is. Thank goodness. Going back to the games, another thing that Pokemon often has to censor in general is religious references. Understandably, it's just best to avoid leaning too hard in any kind of religious direction with a series like Pokemon, and in the Gen 1 and 2 games, certain religious references had to be censored out of the original Japanese versions to account for this. For instance, in both the Gen 1 and Gen 2 games, there are various pieces of decor that can be interacted with within the various buildings, with some of them being specifically mentioned as Buddhist altars in Japanese. However, the same altars in the Western release of the games are instead referred to as Diglett sculptures or incense burners, depending on the game. This is one of the few examples on this list that I can actually understand being censored, but it's still absolutely noteworthy regardless. Rounding us off, I have one more TCG card to share, and while it's not really censored in the traditional sense, it is banned and it's really weird, so I thought it was worth a mention. Coming out of the Evolutions expansion is a card known as Imakuni's Doduo, which is banned at all tournaments for a pretty good reason. It has a Pokemon power known as Frenzied Escape, whose effect is, quote, "When this Doduo retreats, hold this card and throw it as hard as you can because Doduo is running away. Throw the card horizontally with a snap to get the farthest distance." It also has a move called Harmonize, whose effect reads as follows. From the moment you use this attack, you must begin to sing a song. While the song is being sung, the game continues. When the song is finished, this attack does 30 damage. So yeah, banned from tournaments for a pretty good reason, although it would be hilarious to see this used in an actual tournament setting. It's also worth mentioning that the Imakuni person on the card refers to Imakuni, a Japanese musician with a unique style to him that has been involved with various parts of the Pokemon franchise, including the TCG obviously, as well as the anime and the games. And those were 10 more wild examples of Pokemon censorship. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and a comment, and subscribe if you're new for more. I'll be back with another video very soon, and until then, as always, thanks so much for watching, I love you all very much, and I will smell you guys later.